victory. And so today we want to talk a little bit more about that. It's good to see you this year.
Thanks.
I believe the last time we met was at the presidential debate, wasn't it?
Yes. And then you abandoned us.
You were busy, I suppose, thereafter.
That's true.
Karibu sana, it's good to see you.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, and it's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, so many things have been happening, but on Friday when you had your press conference, you had lamented that the president had taken a long time to announce his cabinet. You asked him to do it immediately.
And
he did.
Surprise, yes. Same day.
But what are your thoughts on that? We'll get to the other newly created position, but your thoughts on that list and whether it meets the requirements, the mix in there?
We are actually analyzing the entire list currently, and so far I think we've come up with about 9 observations from the list. We may not have time to discuss all of them, but maybe just to mention them. For example, it looks like the list actually does not meet the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Kenya Constitution that talks about suitability and capability of individuals to serve in a certain department. I mean, there are individuals whose issues are already emerging that they may not be competent, they do not have the requisite knowledge and skill in certain ministries. Of course, I also saw that the fact there's a gender issue still, the gender rule still has not been met by the list. The youth factor has still not been met. Special interest groups seems to have been relegated. Just the failure to observe Article 130 of the Kenya Constitution, which talks about the diversity of the people of Kenya, basically the idea of inclusion, that you must, the national executive must reflect the regional and ethnic diversity of the peoples of Kenya. You can see the imbalance there. There's also elements of recycling, few individuals here and there, either you move them as cabinet secretaries or you take them as ambassadors.
Who would you bump off the list? Who do you think did not absolutely deserve to be nominated by the president?
Well, it's President Uhuru's choice. I don't know what he considered, but for me, I think I'll have considered competencies. For example, when you pick someone like Ambassador Amina Mohammed and you make her the Minister for Cabinet Secretary for Education, I don't know what consideration President Uhuru took into account. Or Matiang'i, Interior, when it's clear that even professionally he's an educationist, he's a professor of education. And then, of course, there's this fellow called Rashid, where now information is emerging that he was, a standard 3 dropout. I mean, Kenya has so many educated individuals with a lot of competencies and skills. Basically, there's I think you can see the element of President Uhuru trying to pay a lot of political debts. And probably that's the reason why he created this new position called Chief Administrative Secretary.
What are your thoughts on that? Many say it's a return to the assistant
minister's
position.
First of all, I think it offends Article 132 of the Kenya Constitution, because our Constitution requires that for any new position in the public service created, it has to be as a result of recommendation from the Public Service Commission. And therefore, President Uhuru did not explain was this a recommendation from the Public Service Commission, and what was the process of that? Because then I guess if Public Service Commission wanted to create this position, there ought to have been some element of public participation. People may be finding out. And I'm saying this in the light of the fact that, you mentioned earlier on that one of the issues that we are putting on the national conversation agenda is reduction of the size of parliament. And here we are talking about the cost of just running parliament and government. So whereas Kenyans are talking about the wage bill, which is so high, here we have a president who is already creating another wage bill, because I don't even understand what the chief administrative secretary will do. And you have a cabinet secretary, a permanent secretary, and now I think we are going to see either infighting between either the chief administrative secretary with the cabinet secretary with the permanent secretary on the other hand. So for me, I think it's a necessary position at a time when Kenyans are talking about a huge national debt.
Okweti Mtata is going to court regarding that very position tomorrow. Is that a move you would support?
I think for me it's important to get to know what did the president take into consideration in creating this new position. As I said, Article 130 of the Kenya Constitution, of course, gives him the power to create any position in the public service, but it has to be after recommendation from the Public Service Commission. Now, we did not see a process where this position was being created. So for me, it's an unnecessary cost to the taxpayers. We need more money to go to devolution. We need to run a lean government. And of course, the other issue that is emerging from that appointment is that it's an incomplete cabinet. I mean, President Uhuru has had all the time. Actually, he has had 5 years during his time to be able to say, okay, I know who I can work with. I mean, he has all the intelligence. He can pick anybody. And of course, it's ethnically imbalanced, as you can see.
How would we achieve ethnic balance and proper representation of the ethnic diversity in this country?
It's very simple.
What's that elusive formula?
I was in the committee of experts that wrote our constitution, and we picked 22 slots for cabinet secretary, almost deliberately, because then we are saying, okay, we have got 44 ethnic groups in Kenya. It's possible to pick. If I was president today, I'll pick 22 different ethnic groups as my cabinet secretaries. Then my next batch of appointment, I'll pick 22 different permanent secretaries, again from 22 different ethnic communities. And this is doable. I mean, all I need to do is probably ask all the vice chancellors of universities, give me the top, even your top students in the last, say, 10 years. That you can do. President has a lot of intelligence. He can tell you, even if you want to pick somebody from the Ogiek, the Sengwer, the Saboti, or the Burji, you can actually say, okay, who is the most competent? And then pair them with the kind of work you want them to do.
So why do you think the president hasn't done that? If it sounds as simple as you say, 22, you get 44.
I don't know what his considerations are, but like I said, I suspect the president is paying a lot of political debts, and maybe he seems to be tired, and there's also, I mean, a red flag why he has taken so long from August of last year. We're talking about 5 months at least to pick a cabinet. But be that as it may, he has now picked a cabinet, as incomplete as it is. And I'm hoping that Parliament will immediately embark on a process of actually
Do you
vetting.
trust that vetting process that will take place? I mean, the names are to be presented tomorrow and the process begins.
Well,
what do you think of that vetting process? Already NASA is saying they won't be party to it, so it will strictly be a Jubilee affair, in which case they could simply ratify all the names.
Well, I don't know what the reasons NASA
to.
is putting forward for not wanting to participate, because they've been given a job by the people of Kenya from whatever constituency they come from to do their work, which is part of that work is vetting. So if they are not going to participate in that vetting, and we are going to share our perspective publicly, we may probably call for a press conference to submit our views on what we think about the president's appointees. And I'm hoping that Parliament will actually look at all those aspects. Like I said, the question of inclusion, diversity, Chapter 6. Do these people meet Chapter 6? Special interest groups, the youth. I've not seen any youthful person in that list. Gender rule. If Parliament were actually to vet and look at those issues, then they should be able to reject some of the names. Okay. Recycling. I mean, there are people who have already held public offices.
So you think they've done their time?
I think Parliament should be able to critically tell President Uhuru, I'm sorry, we appreciate you nominating so and so, but we think this person does not. I mean.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about one of those, or let's watch the story we had promised to you earlier, and this is regarding